Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On Point EDC. Today we have a really cool knife in for review from RealSteel. This is actually the first RealSteel brand knife that we've had on the channel. So a little bit about the brand. They were founded in 2013. They are made in China. Their market segment is high value knives, from really entry level to high end. So they have some really different collections, and this particular one I would consider probably one of their halo models. Really top of the line for what they can produce, and a really fantastic knife. So of course, as you can tell, probably just from looking, this is a titanium frame lock. So it's going to have that Reeve integral lock, which is just an evolution of the Walker liner lock. It's going to have that titanium handle with the integrated frame lock. So there's kind of key characteristics for a frame lock folding knife. So before we get too far into here, let's go ahead and zoom out, get our customary wristwatch check. As you can see today, I have the Stowa Pro Diver, which is really nice, and I got actually a little dusty. Let me wipe that off there. So as you can see, I chose to put this guy on for the review because it's really a little, I'd say it's similar in that it's a big titanium beast. It's definitely a little bit larger than I normally would wear, with those wide lugs, as far as, for my wrist and the height and everything. But at the same time, it does have that great premium quality about it. And although it is a little bit larger, I wouldn't call it oversized. And that's kind of how I feel about this knife here, the Megalodon. It's definitely a longer knife than I'm used to carrying. It being, right at about 8.75 inches, so almost 9 inches long. I definitely stick to kind of the smaller, more EDC-able blade options. But for this guy right here, I gotta say, I couldn't be more pleased. I'm just really in love. So before we jump into those details, let's go ahead and get the customary loom shot here. Let me just charge it up real quick. Get the C3 pumping and camera focus. Okay, as you can see, really nice. As I mentioned before, that C3 Super Luminova, excellently executed by Stowa. Fantastic design, and that's definitely what is on my wrist tonight while I do this review for you. So now back to the RealSteel Megalodon. Basically, this is actually a refreshed model. There was a previous version of the Megalodon, and this is kind of, originally based on the Carson Tech boiling flipper, and that model did really well. It was very limited, sold out pretty quick. This is a refresh model, pretty similar story, very limited and selling out rather quick. So basically everything is pretty much improved on this knife from previously. So there's been some design updates, and definitely some particular, as far as the blade material. Now you got M390, and I just gotta say, this is just a beautiful knife. I mean, this thing is really art in your hand. It's just fantastic. I love the lines. I love the feel. There's so many little details on this knife that I've just come to appreciate, and it's one that I pick up quite often, and I just and just enjoy looking at it. I enjoy flipping it, of course, from that side of just kind of fidgeting with things, but as far as the way it feels in hand, and just those little design nuances that you think are just kind of to look cool, but then you take a closer look and you just realize kind of where your hand wanders to, where your fingers wander, different grips, and there's just little things that we'll cover that will just show you that this thing has just been so well thought out, and I couldn't really be happier. I gotta say, this is probably one of my favorite knives, and it's definitely one of the larger ones. So it's kind of like this watch here, although a little bit larger than I prefer to wear. Just kind of as some of its parts, it's definitely one of my favorite pieces though at the same time, and it just exudes quality, and also, you know, that design execution is just top notch. So a little bit about this as far as pricing goes. The retail is right around 260 bucks, but you can get them, kind of their street price is around 210, or, you know, even sometimes even below that depending on which vendor. The trouble is getting these while they're in stock. So definitely check around, and, you know, worst case scenario, you could always buy one directly from RealSteel at retail, and honestly, I think it's still quite a deal at that price. So, you know, the blade, it's that Bowler M390 ultra premium. You know, this was really kind of my favorite blade steel. It's just so durable, holds such a great edge, and it's just really everything that you need, and more. You know, there's definitely some very popular, so most of my knives are, you know, S35, but I've slowly kind of accumulated a small collection of M390 knives, and I just, the more I experience these blades, you know, kind of the more I want to jump on them. And pretty much I've noticed if there's ever a limited run of anything, a sprint run in M390, you want to pick it up, because it is going to sell out, and then it's going to just raise in value after, you know. And not that I buy any of these as investments or to sell, but it's, you know, it's just definitely something that's comforting when you are buying, you know, multiple knives, and not necessarily just as daily carries, but, you know, it's just something to collect, and to kind of from that standpoint, in the collector's kind of eye, it's definitely nice to have, you know, just a couple extra bonus points when thinking, hey, you know, should I spend money on another knife? So you know, it's really nice. It has that nice drop point blade, full flat grind, that wonderful satin finish there, extremely sharp out of box, and although the blade stock, as you can see, you know, it is pretty thick, that nice full flat grind, it just really helps make this thing just a slicer. So really nice function and form from that aspect. Now, although the specs did fly across the screen there in the beginning, we'll get into them, just very briefly touch on those, but actually before that, the finish here on the handle is a really nice, of course it's titanium, but it has a really great stone wash to it, and it's a nice, it's one of those ones that's really gonna wear really well. And, you know, if you are gonna use this, you know, or have it be your daily knife, it's gonna wear well. You know, it's just gonna have those, anything you see on there, it's gonna just add personality to that finish. It's not something that, you know, you got to worry about fingerprints on or anything like that, or, you know, snail trails. This thing is gonna look great, pretty much from any angle, even after being in your pocket with keys and stuff slamming around in there. So the overall length is 8.74 inches. The blade length itself is at 3.93. So right underneath 4 inches. The close length is right under 5 at 4.75 inches. So it's a pretty substantial handle there, but I mean, you know, of course you can see that it's filled very nicely by that blade. So you know, one of the crazy things is this only weighs 4.3 ounces. So that's actually, I know that doesn't sound like it's very light, but for the size of knife that this is, you know, and this is not some super slim, you know, I mean, I guess you could say it's a little bit slim, but I mean from this aspect, it's not, you know, super svelte or anything like that. So it really could weigh a lot more, definitely, and I would expect it to. But this thing, because it's so well balanced, and, you know, and it is so lightweight, it feels even lighter in hand. I've had definitely smaller knives that weigh less, that feel heavier in the hand, just because of just from a balance perspective. And one of the reasons why this weighs so little is there's actually pretty extensive milling inside of that show side scale. As you can see there, this thing is milled out. So hoping that you guys can see that there. This is, it's so milled out, it almost made me worry when I first looked. I was like a little bit shocked at how milled out that was. You know, it made me give it a couple taps just to make sure it was solid, because that thing is just really, really nicely done. And it just shows, again, those little details that, you know, aren't really selling points to the average consumer, but, you know, for a connoisseur, those are just things that you look for and you definitely can find to appreciate. So in hand, you know, great ergonomics. Obviously feels the hand really nice with that big, you know, 4.75 inch handle there. Flipper becomes a nice finger guard. And you know, kind of a little bit about those ergonomics. As you can see, you know, there isn't any jimping, but one of the cool things, as you can see, there's the beveling that's done right here, which makes it feel good in the hand there, but it actually comes out to nice flats right here, which really gives you a nice place to rest your thumb. And then the cool thing is you go reverse grip, and it's the same story on this end of the knife. So you have those nice contours, but they come to really great flats, so you get some nice purchase on there. If you really need to grip this bad boy, I mean, you're going to be able to really lock in. So really fantastic from that standpoint, and very, very impressive. I just love those little details, you know, the kind of slight kind of jimping that's added right here, just so you can move the lock bar, lock it in a little easier. Very, very, as you can see, fine jimping here. So you know, they're going to make sure, without having a huge, really, I mean, for the size of blade that's flipping out, you would expect a larger flipper. But with that smaller flipper, they want to ensure that, of course, the, you know, the geometry on that is just on point. But because of that smaller scale, having that little extra grip just gives you that extra that you can put on that and just fire that thing out. And it's just fantastic. I mean, the bearings in here are really cool. Needle bearings, pivot, so it's really ultra smooth. And, you know, basically, instead of having little ball bearings in there, it's almost like little rolling pins, you know, all set up going across there. It's kind of the best way to understand that. If you want to Google it and get a picture, definitely go ahead and do that. But I'd say the difference between, let's say, this and a really nice ball bearing pivot is, this just feels so much more controlled. This just feels refined, you know, really fine-tuned, almost like when you have something that's running on washers, you know, like a really nice, you know, Sebenza or you know, something that you've been working, something custom, you know, really kind of polished phosphor bronze, where it just it still has that smoothness of like a ball bearing and that free drop, but it has that kind of that consistency in the action, right? This thing doesn't feel like it's super lubed up. You know, I'd say like a ball bearing feels, you can feel it rolling, and it feels, there's almost a looseness to ball bearings. This doesn't have that looseness, but it still has that smoothness. It's just the best way that I can explain it. And I really, really am a fan of this system. I mean, these needle bearings, just that the blade just feels in such great control, and that consistency of the close, and that it's not like it's going to creak and jump, you know, it just very smoothly comes down. So huge fan. Really that perfect detent for really satisfying flip action. And of course, it's based on a Carson Tech design. So of course, you know, Kit Carson inventing flippers, I wouldn't expect any less. So you know, this thing works really well as far as the light switch, you know, method, or push button. You can also push button, because it does have that nice jimping. You can really grip, and you know, I guess that was kind of more of a light switch. I think your finger kind of wants to light switch it, but if you wanted to, Oh, that one misfire. You can push button, of course. Yeah, you're probably a little bit more likely to misfire on it, but definitely works good both ways. Either way, light switch definitely would probably be first choice. Now in the pocket, although large, you know, this thing does lay very, very flat, which is great. You know, I'd say the only other knife that I have that is, you know, quite close to this size would probably be my PM2. And, you know, I think this definitely lays a little bit better in the pocket than a PM2. It really, and then the nice thing too is, again, you see this great contour here, so when your hand is navigating past that in the pocket, it's not going to give you, you know, any hot spots there. It's just going to come right past it to get whatever you need out of the pocket. So really nice. I'm a really big fan of the spring clip here. As you can see, it has this shape, although of course, you know, some extra contouring there to really flow with this design and this awesome lock bar cut out. It does have a similar shape to, you know, that popular Chris Reeve spring clip, and, you know, same way it's kept there with just a single bolt. Kind of back to some of these organic, very nice wavy lines. As you can see here, there's a nice cut out shape, and it's not just for looks, although it does look awesome. It actually prevents you from overextending outwards too, right? So this being pulled out, now it has a little catch. You know, let's say you're just rushing it and you're just, you know, pushing it in a weird way. But of course, it also does have a, you know, over travel stop that's built into the, as you can see here, that little tab there that's built into the lock bar kind of insert there. So there's no lock stick. So definitely really smooth from that point of view as well. Again, just those little details, those little fine details that really make this knife something very, very special. As far as model variants go, they do have an affordable line of Megalodons as well that use G10 with Sandvik steel. It's the 14 C28N blade steel. You know, and you know, if you like the design, but, you know, maybe you're just not in the market for something like this, and if you were, maybe you would want to beat it up, and this one you probably wouldn't want to. This is more, for me at least, it's more of a collector's piece than something that I'm going to use every day. But it's just a beautiful knife. It's a knife for knife people, you know, knife lovers. This is something you're definitely going to enjoy, especially if you love a really good frame lock flipper. And, you know, really the market is flooded with smaller ones. So if you're looking for a larger one, you got to have this one on your list, because this thing is just magnificent. As far as comparable options, there are quite a few, honestly. But I would say not in this price range. You know, a couple do come to mind, but, you know, they're all definitely priced a little bit more expensive. You know, anything in the US is going to be way more expensive. But there are some other options, of course, from China as well. And then also even Italy with Viper knives. So, kind of as I explore the realm of larger knives, kind of larger carries, you know, hopefully you'll see some comparisons between this kind of facing off against, you know, some of the other kind of very high value proposition pieces, because that's kind of what I focus on. Kind of really big on bang per buck. So really the bottom line here is this is an ultra premium, you know, flagship, you know, from a really nice up-and-comer in RealSteel. So I gotta say, they definitely got themselves some street cred with this piece. And oh man, that thing is beautiful. So if you like the video, please hit like, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. All right, thanks guys. Bye.